China is taking action to remove the COVID quarantine requirement in an effort to expand international tourism. The repeal of the measure is an important step toward fully resuming international travel that the government severely restricted to keep the virus out. The restrictions have significantly decreased the number of foreigners who are in China for employment and study and prohibited most Chinese citizens from traveling internationally. But what does it mean for the world economy? In today's video, we'll be looking at how the scrapping of such measures will affect the world's economy. After much anticipation from business organizations, China has finally decided to relax some of its strictest travel restrictions. China will stop performing centralized quarantines and nucleic acid tests for all incoming visitors as of January 8, 2023, as well as lifting restrictions on the number of international passenger flights, among other things. China is shifting from zero COVID to living with COVID by abolishing obligatory testing, centralized quarantine, and widespread lockdowns. Business organizations have been anxiously waiting the economy's reopening for a very long time. The unexpected change in COVID-19 policy and the increase in cases, however, may continue to cause problems for the supply chain and business operations in the short future. Companies must take precautions to reduce the chances of COVID-19 spreading among their staff. China has made significant progress towards living with the virus almost 3 years after the first case of COVID-19 was identified. China's zero-COVID plan was completely removed by a package of 10 measures announced by the National Health Commission on December 7, 2022. These measures eliminate demands for centralized quarantine, testing, and general lockdowns. Many enterprises that have toiled under nearly 3 years of stringent lockdowns and travel restrictions, which have hindered economic growth, have welcomed this abrupt change in COVID-19 policy. It may still be a few months before China fully reopens to foreign travel, albeit some limitations are still in place. The transition to living with COVID also comes with dangers and challenges that could delay recovery for some time to come. As part of China's zero-COVID strategy, the government and healthcare organizations developed a range of COVID-19 prevention and control measures to keep the overall case numbers as low as feasible. Zero-COVID measures for individuals in China included, among other things, routine PCR testing, travel, and mobility limitations, snap lockdowns of buildings and housing compounds where COVID-19 cases were detected, and centralized quarantine for those discovered to be COVID positive, as well as everyone who had come into close contact with them. Since the significant outbreaks in the spring of 2022, several cities have added the requirement that citizens present a recent negative PCR test in order to enter any public area, including workplaces, eateries, parks, and even public transportation. It had also become more commonplace to employ check-in QR codes, which required users entering different locations to scan a QR code in order to confirm their most recent test results and register their presence. China has recorded significantly fewer total cases than other nations with far lower populations and just a small portion of the deaths, demonstrating the policy's great efficacy. Technology, including travel and health codes that track people's health condition, as well as a sizable pool of frontline staff and volunteers to conduct tests and guarantee strict adherence to the rules and limits, were important in making the strategy successful. The Omicron strain of the virus, which is significantly more contagious, made it to China in 2022, putting the zero-COVID policy to the test. Numerous times throughout 2022, the number of cases reached new highs, prompting strict lockdowns in many cities and regions. Most Chinese provinces had COVID by the fall. Even while the zero-COVID procedures were successful in containing these more widespread outbreaks, their long-term viability has been questioned, and over the past few weeks, several of the long-standing precautions and limitations have been abruptly lifted. Due to a number of factors, including the population's general sense of wariness and dissatisfaction, the difficulty of precisely tracing and registering positive cases due to the speed of transmission, and the Chinese government's conclusion that the prevailing Omicron strain in China posed a lower risk to human life than earlier strains, limitations were swiftly lifted. The switch to a COVID living strategy is a positive step for both locals and enterprises that have struggled financially due to the strict control requirements. Despite the fact that many people are enjoying their freedom in a society where COVID cases are rare, others are concerned about the possibility of an increase in cases. This could result in cautious consumer behavior, where consumers choose not to travel as much, shun in-person catering and retail, and congregate in private spaces instead. Moreover, a potential Chinese version of the Great American Sickout of early 2022, when a rise in COVID-19 cases caused a labor shortage in the US and worldwide as millions of workers called in sick, might result in a comparable labor shortfall, putting additional strain on businesses and their employees and hampering economic recovery. However, there are still certain restrictions in place, and it might be several months before China starts issuing visas to tourists and other travelers and enables arrivals to the country to leave without having to go through quarantine. An official name change for COVID-19 from new coronavirus pneumonia to novel coronavirus infection, COVID-19 infections, and the application of preventive and control measures for a Class B infectious disease were both declared on December 26, 2022 by China's National Health Commission, a cabinet-level executive department of the State Council that is in charge of developing national health policy. Novel coronavirus pneumonia was formerly categorized as a Class B infectious disease, but was nonetheless subject to the prevention and control measures for a Class A infectious disease because it is dangerous to humans and extremely contagious. In addition, in accordance with the provisions of the People's Republic of China's Border Health and Quarantine Law, the infection of COVID-19 shall no longer be considered an infectious disease that requires quarantine. The overall plan for implementing Class B infectious disease management for COVID-19 infections, the overall plan, another circular issued by the NHC on the same day, makes it clearer that beginning January 8, 2023, China will no longer impose quarantine measures on COVID-19 infections, no longer identify close contacts of COVID-19 infections, no longer delineate high and low-risk areas, provide classified treatment for COVID-19 patients and adjust medical insurance policies, adjust PCR tests to voluntary testing, adjust the frequency and content of epidemic information release, and take no quarantinable infectious disease control measures against entry persons and goods. The overall plan specifically states that China will enhance administration of personal exchanges between China and foreign nations and put the following policies into place. Although a negative nucleic acid test from the previous 48 hours is still necessary, international travelers entering China will no longer need to get a health code from Chinese embassies or consulates. All incoming travelers won't be subjected to centralized quarantine or nucleic acid testing. They can be released into the community without further conditions if the health declaration and the routine quarantine inspection at the customs port are normal. The 5-1 regulation, which requires any foreign airline to maintain just one air route to China and operate no more than one flight per week, and the passenger load factor cap will be lifted as controls on the number of international passenger flights. Although customers will be obliged to wear masks when flying, airlines will still need to prevent disease on board. China will continue to simplify procedures for foreigners returning to China for resumption of employment, business, study, family visits, and reunions, and will provide visa facilities in accordance with those needs. Passenger entry and exit through land ports and marine ports will eventually restart. In view of the current state of the global epidemic and the ability of all sectors to support services, China will resume outward travel in a controlled manner. With the stated reforms, some of China's most onerous travel restrictions will be finally lifted. Inbound tourists have long grumbled about the onerous nucleic acid test procedures and the protracted centralized quarantine program. The comparatively unrestricted movement of people between China and the rest of the globe has yet to be observed, nevertheless, because no specific incoming visa policy has been adopted, and the overall plan offers no date for resuming outbound tourism. Nevertheless, given China's efforts to live with COVID and the top leaders' renewed emphasis on economic growth, as seen in the readout of the Central Economic Work Conference, it won't be long before China fully reopens its border. China has made significant progress towards living with the virus nearly 3 years after the initial COVID-19 case was revealed. The National Health Commission published a list of 10 steps on December 7, 2022, officially ending China's zero-COVID plan by withdrawing demands for centralized quarantine, testing, and general lockdowns. Many firms have welcomed this abrupt change in COVID-19 policy because they've been struggling under nearly 3 years of stringent lockdowns and travel restrictions, which have hindered economic growth. Subscribe for more content just like this one and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to smash that like button and press the bell icon to get notified about our new videos. See you in the next one.